That's the thing about bands, right? Like, when one breaks up, it's like you kind of feel like you're never ever going to do that again, and it's like the last thing you want to do. For me, anyway. Obviously, I can only speak from my own experiences, but it's really hard, and because it does, like, there's all that side of things, but there's all like it's intense to kind of to get 4 or 5 people to do anything.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm Adam, and it's so nice to meet you. And this is about
really nice to meet you too, dude.
this podcast is about you and your journey in music. We'll talk about the new song you guys just put out as well.
Right on. Sounds good, man.
Sweet. So, born and raised in New Zealand?
I am indeed, yeah. I grew up in a little town called Taupo, but I now live in Auckland, which is kind of the main city in
The
New
main
Zealand.
city.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. What was it like?
I mean, it's all I've ever known, I suppose. I mean, I've spent a lot of time overseas, but I mean, I think New Zealand's. I actually always thought that I'd live somewhere else, like live. Um, like LA kind of has always felt like a bit of a second home for me, but but no, I mean, I love New Zealand. I mean, it's an amazing country, beautiful people, beautiful, beautiful environment. It's kind of an amazing place to be. It's a great place to raise kids. It's a great place to do stuff. So, I certainly can't complain too much. We're pretty blessed down here.
Yeah, great place to have to do music and art too, because you have like those cool grant programs, right? Like they do in
Yeah.
Canada.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things going on. So, there's lots of support set up for arts and stuff in New Zealand. It kind of it fluctuates, but predominantly it's pretty strong, and it's definitely there to kind of to make life easier for musicians and artists. Which is, it's pretty incredible. Like it's certainly amazing things to do. And yeah, I do know that that they do have them in Canada. When my last band first came to the States, we were touring with all these bands, and they couldn't believe all the music videos we had.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously this was quite a while ago now, so it was kind of pre everyone, it being a thing that you had to have, basically.
Right.
And it was all from grant programs, and that we had this amazing body of music videos in that time when it was just kind of starting, that you kind of like, it was essentially a prerequisite, but it was only sort of going that way. And yeah, we kind of didn't really realize at the time, because the internet was obviously a big thing, but it was still, the world wasn't quite as global as it is now, so we didn't quite understand just how lucky we were down here with that stuff, and the way that works. We don't always get them now, but they are awesome when you do.
Right. I mean, how cool is it to be able, especially then, now everyone has a phone with a camera, and with even like programs on your phone, you could cut some pretty cool videos. But your guys' music videos are so cool. Like just the production of them all is really, really mind blowing.
That's always been something that's been a part, like such a huge part of this band. Like when we first started Ridden by Wolves, like it was kind of, we were trying to find, like, we're all guys that have been in so many bands before and done this many times. So it was really about trying to find what we hadn't done before and do something different.
Mm-hmm.
And so this particular, this band, we basically sort of went, well, let's take everything we love about music and try and smash it into something else. So, taking all our favorite things from different genres, but also sort of really taking that idea of the soundscape that gets created in a movie, like the work of like Hans Zimmer and stuff like that. How can we kind of really kind of place that in a song, and see if we can take the listener in different ways and different places. And of course, the flow on effect of trying to do that in a song means you really have to have some pretty cinematic music videos as well. So we kind of shot ourselves in the foot, but in the same way gave ourselves some pretty cool things to kind of work on and work out and work how to, how do we visualize these songs that we're doing. And I mean, we're really lucky to work for some amazing people. I mean, to tell you the truth, one of our biggest videos, we just out of the blue got a message on YouTube from a director in LA who went, "Look, I love your music. I want to make a music video for you." And I kind of
really?
yeah, and we didn't really know him, and I kind of did a little bit of stalking and was like, okay, he seems all right. And so I had one Skype call with him and was like, all right, you're a vibe, let's do it. And I just loved his energy. We just kind of got on like immediately, even though it was over a video call, you know, it was just kind of, there was something that kind of worked. And he had these dope ideas. And I was just kind of like, look, here we go. Just do whatever you want, basically. And we sent him a whole heap of unreleased songs and said, pick what you want. Because we didn't really know what was going to come of what he was doing. You know, it was a random guy. It could have, you know, anything could have happened. It could have been an absolute disaster. And literally we were going off one Skype meeting and my vibe from a guy on one call. And so we sent him all this unreleased music and just like, pick whatever you want, and weren't expecting huge amounts, you know, I mean, we're Kiwis. So we down in New Zealand, we're like, we've got this, you know, we never expect much from anything, basically. It's just kind of built into our culture and our nature. And so like he came back and he was like, look, I love this song, to tell you the truth. And we were like, okay, that's rad. We were never really planning on releasing that a single, but you know, just go nuts with it. There's no timeline because, you know, it's not in our release plan, whatever. So you just go wild, do whatever you want with that. And how wrong we were. Like, I mean, the song's got like a 1.5 minute instrumental intro. So we were like, there's no way that's ever going to be a single.
Right.
You know, it just kind of, I think that the cool thing, like, well, I mean, the cool thing, the frustrating thing, the crazy thing about like the world right now and the music industry and social media and the way that everything works is it just all changes like so often. And whenever you think you know something, or whenever you think like, whenever I think I know which song's going to go bang or which video is going to go bang, it's generally like the complete opposite. And like, I've been in this game for so long, like I do have a pretty good understanding of what happens, but man, it's really got a real habit of just kicking you in the ass and showing you that you don't know anything sometimes, man.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting, especially with you know, like you said, with like social media and everything's got to be like to the point, right? Real quick. And I come from radio, like terrestrial radio, and that was always the thing. Like, if a song had even a 30-second intro, unless you were, you know, Black Keys or somebody that had like hits prior, you had to really get into the vocal and the hook fast, right?
Yeah.
And to have
got to come in quick. The chorus has got to come quick. And you know, anything over 3 minutes 30 is going to get laughed at. If it's 3 minutes, it's got more of a chance.
Right. It's so interesting.
Yeah, and that's kind of the world I came from as well. So, I mean, obviously with this band, we were a disaster waiting to happen though, because when we're trying to create this kind of cinematic sort of soundscape, we struggle to make any song under 4 minutes, and that's kind of, and we've just kind of we've learned to live with that, and we've just owned that. But there is, I suppose that's the beauty of the world now as well, and in that sense is that yes, everything does need to be to the point, but the kind of the general rules kind of don't really exist anymore. You can kind of do whatever you want. You know, if you get a fan base on Spotify or YouTube or something like that, kind of doesn't really matter how long the song is. If they like you, they're going to listen to it, and it's kind of giving the listener the chance to listen to things that they may love. But
right,
you know, there was a period of time in which that really, you know, was getting created less because radio dictated you couldn't do that, or you know, or the rules, you know, for becoming successful dictated that wasn't going to work. So kind of, I mean, I suppose it's opened the game up a little bit. And then of course we've got social media telling us that we need to make something 30 seconds instead. So
right. But I mean, even like with what totally, but with what you're saying is like the gatekeepers aren't really it's changed a bit, right?
Well,
I mean,
there's just other gates, you know,
right.
like the gatekeepers are still there in that particular thing, but the kingdom's kind of grown a bit, you know, like there's that gate and the gatekeepers are still standing there, but you know, there's other gates, you know. I mean, I mean, I still kind of like pinch myself, especially after the last couple of years we had, like we're sitting down at the bottom of the world, right? Like we're down in New Zealand, we are literally down the bottom of the world, and our, you know, a third of our fan base is in the US, the next half's in the UK and Europe, and then we've got Australia and New Zealand kind of after that, where it's, you know, we've never, because of COVID and things like that, we've never even got to play in these territories. So that's kind of what I mean about the kingdom changing and like the gates being different. You know, there's ways to do things now. because of the internet and because of how connected we are, you know, you can kind of create this fan base. And you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, we desperately want to come and play to these people. We
Right.
desperately want to be coming and playing over there, but it just hasn't been a possibility in the last couple of years. So you know, there's you know, completely different sort of things now that you can kind of use and work in music to become successful without having to, you know, follow the rules that, you know, we spoke about before.
Yeah, I mean, especially like, I mean, you'll see artists, especially during the pandemic, right, with like TikTok that'll blow up on a song, and they've never even played a show.
Yeah,
Like, I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
there's like, I remember I interviewed Powfu, who had that like "Coffee in Your Head" song,
Yeah.
and he had one show that he played to no one, like in Texas or somewhere. And then that song blew up on before that song. And then it was like he was a SoundCloud kid. And then he that song blew up. It had like 100 million streams. And there was nowhere to play because the world was shut down. But it's like just landing these things out of kind of the internet.
So wild, right? Like
Yeah.
both those things that you just said are so, like, it's so crazy. You know, there's so much so I suppose opportunity for a song to blow up now, because you see, you know, and rhyme or reason, who knows, you know, why any of it happens. And maybe there's a science to it, maybe it's, you know, just pure dumb luck that happens out of the blue. But also the fact that, you know, that we just went through this crazy, like, one of the craziest things in world history, in which the world shut down and there were no places to play. Like, that's there's
Yeah.
not been many times in the history of the world that you could say that was the case.
And it's a
Um,
global thing. That's what blows my mind. I mean, I'll talk to
imagine,
artists like you and in New Zealand or, you
yeah,
know, Europe or wherever it may be, and we all have the same story. Like, "Oh, yeah, dude, I
yeah,
was sitting inside for a year."
the entirety of the world. Like, there's
Yeah.
literally, you know, like, you can't get the world to agree on anything. And
Right.
yet
Except staying inside.
for this period of time, we managed to get everyone to stay inside. Just, you know, it's incredible. Could you imagine that, you know, that sentence that you just said about, you know, that spiel about that guy blowing up on TikTok?
Uh-huh.
Um, but the world being shut down, there being no shows. Imagine telling someone that 10 years ago, saying, "Oh,
Right.
this is," you know, imagine saying to them, like, you know, in a couple of years, this is what's going to happen. It just in a very small segment of life. Like, you just imagine telling yourself that 10 years ago. There's no way you'd
Right.
believe it.
Right.
Trying to explain what just happened, or the way the music industry is now. Like, if I told my you know, my younger self, like, that this is where it was going, like, I don't think I'd believe anything. Um,
No.
like my last band, which I suppose, you know, I am getting old now, and I just I try and hide that in my brain. Um, but like, we half our videos barely even got on YouTube. Like, that was kind of because YouTube was literally like just starting.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of, or we were just like 21 and didn't care, which is ridiculous. um, but it's all changed so fast. And then, you know, and then of course throw in a global pandemic where the world stays home for 2 years, and you've got a recipe for some weird stuff to talk about.
I know. It's just so bizarre. It really is. Because I mean,
Mm,
I feel like, yeah, I grew up without, you know, when I was all these social media was just, I mean, I was in college when like, you know, MySpace was like the
mm-hmm,
thing.
mm-hmm.
So it's weird to like, and then like when it turned from like MySpace to then Facebook, I was like, who's gonna jump onto this? Like, I mean, like,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
you do, and you have to kind of adapt, and like, it's just weird how it all,
But how
you know,
wild is that as well? That, like, literally, you know, like you said, like on MySpace, we were all there. Like, everyone was on it. It was huge, and I love MySpace. You know, it was the best. You know, it's the best place to find music. It was the best place to be a musician. It was the best place to just hang out and make friends and things like that. As I say, when my last band toured the US, like, we just spent hours on MySpace talking to people, saying come to the show, and you know, it
yeah,
worked in most cases. But then literally, and I know it wasn't overnight, but you know, in hindsight, it feels like overnight. It just kind of gone. Everyone's on Facebook, and then, you know,
yeah,
you see that migration to the next. And it's pretty wild that can have, like, and literally MySpace can become nothing from everyone being on it, it being the only thing, to everyone
yeah.
jumping ship and going, I'm not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I'm going over to Facebook. I'm like,
Yeah.
what? Now I got to make a whole new friends list. Like, this is a
Yeah, come on,
nightmare.
I can't start again. I was popular there.
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
I want to give my hearts out on Bebo.
Right. Oh, that's so funny, man. Well, so okay, I don't know if you mind discussing your other band, just because I'm kind of interested now.
Hit me, man. Yeah.
But even prior to that, like, how did you get into music? Do you come from a musical household?
Look, music's just always been my thing. I think I was probably kind of doomed since I was a kid. I kind of like I've been singing since you basically couldn't shut me up since I could make noises. Really, is kind of what my parents tell me. So, I think it was always probably in my future, and so I sort of I've always done something musically in my life. So whether it be like musical theater, or I started bands when I hit high school, and kind of been in bands ever since, basically. It's just kind of that's how it goes. That's how it's always been, and that's kind of all I really that's what I know, and that's what I do.
Did
Um,
you start off like like obviously singing is a big part of it, but like were you a like in piano lessons or anything when you do that as a
Look,
kid, or guitar
I
lessons?
I did those things as a kid, and I am like I don't want any kid out there to listen to my story and think it's a good idea. And like I'm a terrible example, and I don't want anyone to listen to what I say. But so basically, I did like piano lessons and things like that. I did guitar lessons, but singing was easy, and guitar and piano was hard. And as a kid, I was like, well, I'm just gonna do this. Like my parents paid this guitar teacher a fortune for me to go to guitar lessons for like 2 or 3 years. And he was just this old rocker, and I really loved hanging out with him. And we just basically sit and just talk about music for an hour once a week. And as a result, I can still barely play the guitar. It's bad.
That's
So yeah, kids listening out there, don't be like me. Really stick at it and learn that instrument, because otherwise you'll get to my age and be like, man, I really wish I could play things better than I can right now.
But you started joining bands in high school. Were you the
Yeah, yeah.
songwriter for the bands? Like, or did
So
you
I
play
mean,
guitar and
I,
write
I
the songs?
I've always written the lyrics and melodies always been my thing.
Got it.
I kind of, which does mean, I mean, I can play enough guitar to write with myself, but I prefer, I often prefer writing with other people. And then
Uh-huh.
my domain is the lyrics and the melody, and that's where I've always loved. That's where I'm hugely passionate about.
Mhm.
I kind of spend hours and hours crafting lyrics, and working out how to tell stories in specific ways. But that's what I love doing. That's where I find my sort of therapy, I suppose, and my enjoyment at the same time.
Mhm.
I'll I'll leave the chords and instrumentation to the ones that are good at
Okay.
it.
With your high school bands, though, would you guys play around town or like
Yeah,
talent shows, anything like that?
yeah, it's funny. Like I look back on all that time, like with like real like it kind of just joy and love. Like it was cool. Like I'm still very, very close friends with all the guys that were in my high school band. And amazingly, like we just played this really massive festival here in New Zealand called Homegrown.
Mhm.
And one of the guys that was in our high school band, he lives in the UK at the moment. He flew over for 2 weeks to come and hang out for the festival, and tech guitar tech for the band. And then
Wow.
one of the other guys that was in the band ended up filling in on guitar for our band. So he was playing for Written by Wolves at the festival. I had two guys from high school, and then the DJ who was playing tunes in between the bands on the stage. He went to high school with us in Topor as well.
Wow.
So we had three cats from high school, and then one of the other bands that was playing, um, their singer, she was in a band that we used to always play with as kids in high school. And so that in New Zealand, there's this thing called Rock Quest. And so when you're in high school, you go on this band competition. And so my band and her band were always sort of going up against each other. And so she was playing the festival as well. And then in the band that played before us on the stage, the singer from that band was in my my high school band, but after we left high school. So we carried on. That's the band that I toured the States with and things like that. And so yeah, I know that I've said way too many things now for it to make any sense, but it was just such
No, but it seems like it was all, yeah,
it
a
was
lot
such
of people.
it was such this like beautiful, magical, like kind of wholesome, amazing day. And when I say wholesome, we partied pretty hard, but there was just so many friends from my like childhood and then my kind of early days in music were just all there, and we just all got to hang out and kind of have this amazing kind of time together. And yeah, it was wild. It was such an amazing experience to kind of to get to do that. And it's like, I mean, I've played so many festivals and so many shows, and never it has that kind of situation kind of happened. It just kind of out of the blue, like here we were, this kind of serendipitous moment that just meant that we were all kind of there hanging out and doing what we loved, and getting to sort of just watch and appreciate everyone doing their thing, and kind of hang out like we were kids again. Like we literally just turned into 16-year-old kids again for a while, with less like kind of trying to copy the things they did on Jackass.
Right.
Because we're too old to do that now, and I'll break myself.
Sure. Wow. Okay. Wait, so what was the rock competition again called?
So the high school band competition in New Zealand is called Rock Quest. And so
Rock
that's
Quest.
like,
I think so I interviewed Tom and Elisa from The Naked and Famous, and I think they were talking about that.
right on. Yeah. So that's basically how every musician in New Zealand has come up in
Okay.
some way, shape, or form. Like it's a real, like it's a bit of an institution in this country, and it's been going for years and years and years. And you kind of so actually one of the guys in Written by Wolves, his high school band won it one year, which like if you've won it, like because it's literally the entire country, if you've won it, it's a pretty massive badge of honor to keep. And obviously, you know, it was a long time ago, but I still tell people that he, you know, that he won Rock Quest. Yeah, I didn't win it, but he did.
Yeah, I don't know, I don't even think the people in The Naked and Famous won it with their band, but it
No,
was like
I don't think they did, but yeah, it's an amazing thing, and it's very cool because you know everyone got as a teenager, like it kind of gave you your first experience of how to be like a you know, they're in like really great venues and things like that, not like kind of they're not in like bars and clubs and things like that. They're in like theaters and auditoriums, and so you know, big crowds, and because all the schools come. So if you're in a school and you've got bands, all the kids from school come, so you've got, you know, a couple of thousand kids in there, and
wow.
they're all having their first taste of like kind of like a rock concert experience as well, generally. And so
Mhm.
everyone's going wild, and so it's this amazing sort of way to kind of hone your skills and kind of learn how to be on stage and how to entertain a crowd. It's a very, very, you know, it's a pretty amazing stepping stone
Yeah,
for
that's a
teenagers in
cool,
this
yeah.
country. Yeah.
That's, I know you guys have such cool like things like that. Like I said, like even the grant program, and those are just to have that support in your
Yeah.
music and arts
We're,
is
we're,
like
uh,
is so
we're
awesome.
we're really lucky there. And it is a pretty amazing sort of setup, and it is a supportive setup. I mean, obviously, I think it's kind of part and parcel of having a small population. So there's only 5 million people in New Zealand,
Uh-huh.
in the whole country. That's not
Wow.
just, you know, and so I
That's like
think that
half of LA.
that's what I mean, you know, like
Yeah.
that's the thing. So the difference there is, you know, that there is opportunity because of that, but there is also a flip side in which, you know, you're always going to be dealing with a small population. So you've got a small population base to kind of sell tickets to or sell music to or things like that. So I suppose
Right.
that's where this globalization of music has been pretty helpful for those of us sitting down at the bottom of the world right now.
With you said your high school band was the one that you ended up getting pretty popular, right? I mean, to come to the US and all that stuff. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah, so we like kind of all finished up and then took a couple of years off after to do various things after school, and then went, hey, should we do this again? And so we all joined forces again, and pulled another guy into the band, and carried on for another couple of years, and made some amazing videos. Sorry, Siri just decided to pop up. Siri
Oh.
still can't understand my accent, and so all sorts of things that I say, Siri just sort of turns up and wants to deal with
That's
wants to
funny
help.
because It's funny because I use on my maps app, I use a woman from I think it's New Zealand, a New Zealand accent. Like,
Oh, really?
so when I'm driving, that's what I hear when I'm driving.
That's very nice. I've never heard anyone decide that they would like to choose the New Zealand
I
accent.
do. I choose it because I don't know. I don't want to listen to the English United States one. I'm like, I'm good. I'll find something
Yeah, fair enough. Right on.
um,
That's nice. I'll let the Prime Minister know that someone out there has chosen New Zealand. It's a small
yeah,
country. We could
yeah,
direct line.
yeah. Let them know. Let them. People have me out.
I know, yeah, that's it. You'll come in, we'll have to like roll out a red carpet or something, and they're gonna be like
the guy who
there'll
uses
be a full parade for you. This guy uses a New Zealand accent on Google Maps. Literally, we'll just take you, we'll just carry on on our shoulders all the way down the length of
Like,
the
who is
country.
he? Oh, he's the one guy.
He's the Google Maps guy.
The Google Maps. What was your band called, if you don't mind me asking?
5-star Fallout. So we kind of, yeah, we finished up high school. It wasn't what we were called in high school, but yeah, decided to do it all again and spent this amazing kind of couple of years. And I did some, toured New Zealand a lot of times, and then came to the States for 3 months. We had this great booking agent out there who put us on some amazing shows. And it was kind of like it was one of those things that could have gone, and it kind of almost happened. And we played some really great showcase shows, and got pretty close to signing some deals with some labels over there, and carrying on touring. And then in that true to form band story, we fell out with management, and then kind of by then everyone was, the thing with being 21 is it's really easy to go and just move on to the next thing or do something else, and that one kind of fell over, which was fine. And then I kind of came back and started working on other stuff. I worked for a while after that on I helped write Romeo and Juliet into a rock opera. So we kind of put that turned that into a musical, and then ended up shooting a movie for that, and did that. And then I worked on some other movie stuff, and then decided to get back into doing some stage show stuff. So did some musical theater stuff here in New Zealand, and did that for a while, got bored again, and decided it was time to start a band again, and here I am.
So you have a background then in movies and film.
Yeah.
So it makes sense that you would put a lot of effort into making these songs.
I suppose
work.
The more you carry on, right, the more you do something, the more you start drawing from your previous experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I talk a lot, and I think a lot now about that, that the 5-star Fallout, the band that I toured the States with, and things like that. And we got quite close to doing some pretty amazing things. Well, I mean, we did do a lot of amazing things, but we got quite close to sort of carrying on. But I kind of am not sure that, I think with this band, with Written by Wolves, this is kind of the one that, like, I don't think I could have written I don't think I could have written our album that our last album.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I could have done that when I was 21. Like, and I couldn't have created what we're creating now then. Not to take away from what we did then, because I love that and hold it really dearly. But I think I've kind of taken all my experiences so far in life, and context and people and things and stories and relationships and heartbreak and hurt and been joy and love and everything, and being able to use that in telling stories and creating things with this band. So I think it is all kind of a continuation of what you've gone through in
Mm-hmm.
life as you kind of continue on and grow up. So it's kind of, as much as I back then was annoyed with how things ended, I'm glad that I got to this place, because I don't think that I could have done this in a different time. Like even the new stuff that we're writing now and have just started releasing, I don't think I could have even written that a few years ago. Like I'm pretty proud of what's all coming next. I think it's pretty wild and it's pretty amazing, and I think people are gonna get some good times out of it, and hopefully be pretty shocked and kind of taken on rides that they didn't necessarily think they were going to go on. But as I say, I don't think I could have done that back then, and I couldn't even do that at the start of this band. So it's definitely all this kind of pretty amazing progression, and like you say, a background and all these things, and you just use what you've got, right? And so kind of in telling stories and doing what I do, I've kind of got this kind of life that I've had that I can kind of draw on and kind of only hope to continue getting better at doing that.
Yeah, like what drew you back into wanting to start a band, and then how did you get everybody together to form Written by Wolves?
That's the thing about bands, right? Like, when one breaks up, it's like you kind of feel like you're never ever going to do that again. And it's like the last thing you want to do. For me, anyway. Obviously, I can only speak from my own experiences, but it's,
Like
setting one
starting
up.
over essentially, right? I mean,
Well,
you went from having these fans and being able to tour the United States and do these things to like, okay, now we're gonna come up with Written by Wolves and we're gonna put a song on Spotify and we're gonna have no monthly listener. You know what I mean? Like you have to start
yeah,
at ground zero.
it's really hard. And because it does like, there's all that side of things, but there's all like, it's intense to kind of, to get 4 or 5 people to do anything together and be cohesive in what it is that you want to do. It's not easy. And so
No.
we kind of got to this point. Well, all the guys in this band were people that we'd kind of talked about doing something in the past anyway,
Mhm.
but timing had never kind of worked out. And then we kind of we got to this point where everyone was had the previous bands and stuff had all finished up, and we were all sitting in the same kind of headspace at the same time, in which, okay, maybe it's time to start something new, maybe it's time to do something new and start a new band. So we kind of just jumped on that and went with it. But we sat down and talked about it and said, look, if we're going to do this, because, like I say, it's not easy to start something new. If we're going to do it, then we need to do something different to anything we've ever done before. And so that's where this kind of idea was born for Written by Wolves, that we were going to try and sort of cross genre and kind of smash as many genres as we could into one sound, but also sort of try and create that kind of soundscape and try and not just, try in any way, shape or form take the listeners on a ride. Like if you're watching a movie and something changes, you kind of know how to feel. It's like the movie takes you on a ride, and it kind of, the soundtrack to that movie kind of takes you where you need to go. And that was kind of our idea of how to kind of set that up.
Mhm.
And look, and sometimes some songs were better at it than others, and I wouldn't, and I'd be the first one to admit that. But I think when we did first start sort of writing stuff, and we did start sort of, we kind of weren't really sure how it was going to go or what it was going to sound like, and we kind of just kind of kept rolling with it and kept trying to get as kind of weird as we possibly could, and this is where we've ended up. We've kind of got this rule in the studio that it's probably not quite there yet unless we feel slightly uncomfortable. And so
Okay.
that's kind of where it goes. Like if you're not kind of asking yourself questions about whether we should have gone that far, then maybe we haven't quite gone far enough yet. It's kind of the vibe.
Yeah, I like that. Well, you guys were, I mean, I'm just looking solely at like your Spotify numbers, right? I mean, Not Afraid to Die, was that the first song you guys put out as a
That was
single?
the first song we dropped. Yeah.
And I mean, it has nearly like 5 million streams. So
Yeah.
right away, do you feel like you guys had some validation as far as like people were excited about the band, or like how long were you playing a bunch of shows before releasing that song, or like tell
No,
me kind of how it
we
began.
didn't really play anything before we released that. We kind of like wrote this song in the studio, and we wrote 2 or 3 and recorded them in the studio, and started kind of shooting videos for them, and then started playing shows once we started releasing stuff. It was kind of like it wasn't an instantaneous thing.
Mhm.
I think we kind of, I suppose the difference in starting this band is we'd all been, we'd all done it before. We weren't starting out without a clue. Like we had a pretty good game plan. We had a
Mhm.
pretty good, obviously, the music industry was a constant changing thing and still is. But we kind of, we had a pretty good idea of how things worked and what we were going to need to do. So I think that was obviously a fair sort of a bit of a head start, in that we kind of paid our dues and done our time in various other bands, that we could kind of fast track this one because we knew what we were doing, rather than kind of fumbling in the dark trying to work out what to do. So we kind of, I suppose, jumped a bit further forward and I suppose tried to make things look a little bit more exciting than they possibly already were at the start.
Mhm.
But once again, it's just you're the sum of your experiences, I suppose. and we were lucky enough to have enough sort of knowledge of where to go that we could kind of push things further a little bit quicker.
Mhm. And with that, I mean, having that experience, so did you guys know right away, like, okay, like this is working, we need to play a bunch of shows, we need to try to get on the road? Like, what was how did you adjust differently, kind of having an idea of how this works
Our
versus like the first time around?
our game plan for this band, and it's fluctuated obviously because it's been, I still think of us as a new band, but I sit here, I think like 8 years later, I think we've been doing this for about 8 years now, which is seems like a ridiculous amount of time. Um, our kind of game plan from the start for this one was essentially to just release constantly and release as much as possible and be getting songs and videos out there as often as we possibly could.
Mhm.
Um, we kind of we ignored the kind of, especially for the first couple of years as the band, like ignored the idea of having to do albums and things like that, and just dropped, I think we dropped maybe 12 or 15 singles before we even thought about doing an album. So we kind of, it was just about constantly taking things over and keeping stuff there. I think my kind of idea in the initial stages was, you know, there's nothing. Yeah, and I know this is a ridiculous thing to say, but as a listener, it can be quite annoying if you find a new band and they've only got one tune, because
Right.
you love them, and in this fast-paced kind of world in which, attention spans are getting shorter and shorter and shorter, you kind of can't like, um you can't hope that they're just going to come back, hit follow and remember to come back. You move on. If something takes too long to kind of to give them that next track, or that next, hit of the good stuff, then it's kind of like
Yeah.
you're in danger of losing someone that might be really, really pumped. So we kind of were like, well, let's try and minimize that opportunity of people forgetting about us, and just keep stuff coming as much as possible, which is also difficult because, it's quite hard. Like, one thing that I struggle with a little bit at the moment is not being able to kind of celebrate the wins, because
Mhm.
you kind of like, we drop a song and I'm already like, if I haven't already planned the next video shoot, I am like, if it's not already booked in, we're generally kind of shooting it like just after we've released a new song, or I'm locking everything in and locking in locations and people and what we're doing and things like that. So it's kind of like you finally get to this release stage, this thing that you've been working up to, that you've spent all this time on, and then you're kind of already moving on to the next one. So it's quite it can be a bit difficult, and I'm kind of trying to remind myself that it's important to sort of take time to stop and actually celebrate, the cool things that we're doing, rather than just focusing on, okay, now what's next.
Right.
Which is not always easy, because I sometimes you stop and you go, okay, but hold on, what's next?
Right. Yeah. I feel like a lot of creatives have that same issue. It's like, yeah, that what I did there was great, but I'm already like, just wait till you see
Yeah,
the next thing, right? You're always
yeah,
looking
yeah, yeah,
forward, but you don't have a
yeah,
chance to sit there and be like, damn, like people care and this video is
yeah.
doing well, or, whatever it may be.
Yeah, we got sent a message from a guy that I knew, who's a big fan of the band, the other day, kind of, and he put some of our numbers in perspective with some of the things that he'd been looking at, and it was a kind of a quite cool moment of going, okay, people are actually kind of, paying attention. People are noticing, and people are seeing that, what we're doing is pretty cool. So it's cool, but I mean, like I said, I suppose we're just kind of suckers to continuing and just kind of keeping that train rolling, and moving on to the next thing. And maybe we're just sort of perpetuating the way that society's going. I don't know, but hey, it's fun.
Right, right, exactly. And well, you've had some great collaborations as well. I mean, you had Sonny of P.O.D on one of your records, and Kellin Quinn, who I've had on my show before. I've had Marcos
uh
of P.O.D, but not Sonny. But yeah, it's like cool to see that I'm originally from San Diego, so
so
P.O.D was like, I remember seeing
uh,
them at like little skate demos at churches, and they had like their CD, like the little insert was like printed on their computer and like cut out with a scissor, and like,
so
they've obviously became such a massive band, but like, how were you able to reach out to those, Kellen and Sonny, to get them on your record?
Dude, that was wild, man. Like that whole the collab project was such a crazy thing. Like it kind of so I mean, obviously, I suppose you've got to take like kind of silver linings out of things that were a bit rubbish and sucked a bit. And I think like COVID was kind of one of those times where everyone was basically sitting around at home, and so you had this opportunity to kind of do something different and do some crazy stuff. And so we were getting all sorts of messages and have since the band started, from people talking about you know, what our music meant to them, and in some instances talking about how it saved their life and things like that.
Mhm.
And so we, you know, we always kind of made a point, like I suppose like, I've never shied away from talking about how music is my therapy, and it's kind of how I deal with, you know, with my mental health and where I'm at the time. And I'm, you know, I'm very lucky to have that, because I'm well aware that not everyone has that outlet.
Mhm.
So we always kind of tried to make our music something that can kind of be a bit of a safe haven for people, and can maybe be something that does sort of um help people through dark places. But when we kind of got into this kind of COVID time, and started seeing the way that people were, you know, reacting, and some of the messages we were getting, we kind of realized that it was there was an opportunity for us to probably look at doing more, and maybe not just talk about things, but see if there was something extra that we could do. And so that's where the idea for the collab project was born. It was kind of about um, trying to remind our sort of friends and our fans and things like that, that no matter what you're going through, you don't have to do it on your own.
Mhm.
And so we kind of had this wild idea to kind of to start that kind of ongoing project within the band. And the first iteration of that was the collab project, and it was taking songs from Secrets, where we, you know, went out to these people and just kind of threw something at the wall and just saw what stuck. And so we kind of managed to send some messages to people like Kellin and Sonny and Trenton from Hands Like Houses,
Mhm.
and Sydney Ray White from the Wild Things, and all these people, you know, I mean, we threw a lot of messages out there, but these are the ones that came back and were like, look, I love what you're doing. I love that you know, we sent them specific songs, and we're like, you know, we vibed if you'd work on this. And they came back, and I like it was wild. Like it was kind of one of those. I mean, there was a few like pretty wild like life moments, you know, like I was doing an interview here in New Zealand, and I just got an email from Sonny, and he just replied saying that, yeah, I'm in and I want to do the track and blah blah blah. And I couldn't tell anyone, obviously. And I got the email, opened it, read it, and then the phone rang to do this radio interview. And I like had to kind of be like, look, I just something wild's just happened, and I can't tell you anything about it, but it's epic. You know, like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty nuts. But
That's
yeah,
funny. Yeah, like you're just so excited and you just want to tell someone, but the person you have to talk to is not the
yeah,
person because
yeah,
they're gonna
yeah,
be able to be the one to be like, "Oh my
yeah,
gosh, did you hear the
yeah, like
new Written by Wolves record is gonna have Sonny of P.O.D."
yeah, like a literal mouthpiece to the world, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, like POD was one of my favorites growing up. Like you know, we used to play POD songs in my high school band.
That's
You know,
awesome.
it was, you know, it's kind of like a, you know, they're a bit of a soundtrack to my kind of youth, I suppose, in
Mhm.
various ways. So to get to work with Sonny was wild, and then, you know, to have him agree to be in the music video as well was just like that was another crazy thing. So I was producing from my end, and then there was a crew in Australia shooting part of it and kind of overseeing and producing the entire thing. And Sonny was going out on tour, and we had to basically work within his tour schedule and find somewhere close to where he was going to be that he could shoot his parts. And it was absolutely nuts and like near on impossible, but we got it over the line while sitting in Australia and New Zealand. Yeah, it was a wild ride, but we're pretty stoked with what happened at the end.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I
Mm.
love that you do the instrumentals as well of your song, like at least that Secrets album. Like I think that's
Yeah,
such a cool idea to just
yeah,
do. Was that hard for you? Because you're just sitting, you're the
Well, yeah, I
vocalist.
mean, it's kind of because I do all the like uploading and stuff. Like I send everything to the distributor, and I was like
Yeah,
having to
sure.
go. Well, I'm not even on this. Why am
I
I?
was
Why am
gonna
I,
say,
I
you're like,
was
"Well,
like,
thanks, guys. I got to sit on the sidelines here for a
I was like,
bit."
why am I sitting there doing all this work for something that I'm not even part of? Uh, no, that was Dave, our guitarist idea, and I think it was a really cool idea. I think it's amazing. Like, I mean, I remember as a kid growing up, and you'd buy a single on a tape or a CD or something, and like, and it would have the instrumental B side, and it would be so rad to have. Like, it was, I always remember loving it, especially growing up as a singer.
Mhm.
Like having an instrumental version of a song, like was always so exciting. But also, you get a new like a different perspective, and you hear new things when you don't have someone annoying like me just kind of like
Singing over it.
warbling on top. So like it's a real opportunity to hear some of the beautiful intricacies in the music, I suppose. And I think it's obviously not going to be something that's for everyone, and it's not going to set the world on fire, but it's a nice thing for people that want it to have, I think.
I think as well. I think it's really cool. I love it when bands do that. And you guys do acoustic songs too of your versions, which I always am a sucker for when you hear a song and then you know it a certain way, and then there's like this beautiful acoustic version of it. You're like, damn,
Yeah,
like
there's
that just
nothing
shows
better,
the
right?
range in the
Like,
band.
and that yeah, we love that stuff, man. And once again, it's like it's stuff that we grew up listening. It's stuff that I remember reacting that way when if a band did that, and I still do, obviously. Like, but how exciting it was when you'd hear that, oh, someone's done an acoustic version or things like that. It was just it's always rad, and it's always exciting, and it's yeah. So we kind of we wanted to make sure that we did something like that. And so we do them whenever we can, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I love it. And the new one's called Give 'Em Hell's the new song you guys just put out.
That's right.
I want you to tell me about the song, and then the video is insane.
It's pretty wild, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this track, we kind of like, when it first started, we always kind of knew it was probably going to be like the first song of the new cycle of our new release cycle. Once we finally moved on from Secrets and put that behind us and started the new era and new iteration of Written by Wolves. Like, it kind of just it felt like the way to kind of start things. When I first kind of heard that the instrumental section at the front of the track, I kind of went, right, this is a public service announcement. This is something that you've got to, this is a pretty important moment to tell people. So we kind of thought that was kind of the best way to kind of re-announce ourselves to the world and go, right, we're back. It's new music time. Let's buckle up and get excited. And with that, we kind of, I mean, I think we, at the time when we shot this video, because we shot the video like a year ago.
Oh,
Um,
wow, really?
yeah, just kind of the world worked and the way things happened. We were in a bit of a transition phase, and obviously we were stuck in New Zealand because we still couldn't travel. So we kind of we went, well, let's do something crazy with the video. And so Bahador, one of our guitarists, he directed that one. And he kind of came up with the concept. He's actually just recently moved on and decided to leave the band to focus on his career and things like that, which is, totally we totally understand and see where he's coming from there. But it kind of meant that he got to leave on this really, really crazy, wild sort of idea that we got to have and got to put together. And so it's basically, for those that haven't seen it, it's kind of like a human chess game,
Yeah.
uh where we just basically get wasted by people playing. by it's to be honest, it's quite hard to explain. It's kind of, it's life and death, and it's consequence, and it's every move, and it's kind of, it's a pretty perfect way to kind of visualize and sum up the song. I think yeah, it's pretty wild. You just basically have to check it out.
Yeah, no, it's incredible, and, like, there's, like, martial arts, and there's, like, dance, and, like, just the way that the whole thing kinda comes
Yeah,
together.
we got horses, we got stunt
Yeah,
people,
you got horses,
we
I
got
forgot, yeah, there's,
martial
like,
artists.
sword fight, I think, in one part of it, like,
Yeah, we
it's seriously, like, so cinematic, I mean, it's right up that your
we
alley as far as you.
we pushed the boat out with that one. That was kind of like producing that one was kind of like was like every time there was a new idea, I went, how am I gonna find horses? You know, like that kind of thing. Like where am I finding this stuff? But
Yeah,
you
it's
know,
like you had like it's a Game of Thrones meets like music,
yeah,
not Game of Thrones, but it's like got that like medieval
yeah,
feel
totally,
to
man.
it.
Yeah, we had this really great body artist who we just basically said just go wild, had a few kind of ideas of where to start and just let it go nuts. And it was kind of yeah, it was crazy and a really great props department and wardrobe department that just created these epic costumes. And it was, you know, it was so much fun. It was, you know, we've not really, I mean, we've made some pretty wild music videos in the past, but it was the first one where we went, all right, how far can we, let's just go as far as we can go, basically.
Yeah. It's a
So,
yeah, if for anyone who hasn't seen it, it is really a rad video.
uh,
Really, yeah, I love the concept behind it between that and then just like how it's filmed and the what you I mean horses and
yeah,
knights and sword fights and yeah, it's really cool.
it's all there. You
Yeah, it
name
is. It's all
it.
there. Is are you guys working towards an album with Give 'em Hell or
We sure are, or something to that effect. But basically, I mean, I can't say too much at this point. But
sure?
basically, there's a lot coming. It's good, you know, if you're a fan of the band or you've just found the band, like now's a very good time to get on board because we're going to keep you pretty excited this year. I think there's a lot going on. There's a lot happening behind the scenes right now. And there's a lot to come. It's going to be an exciting year, a pretty wild ride, but there's going to be some twists and turns and some really good times. So if you are a fan of the band and you've just found us, then do stick around because we're going to make it exciting for you.
I love it. I can't wait, man. And I appreciate your time today, Michael. Thank you so much.
Hey, dude, thank you so much for having me. I've loved it. Absolutely loved it.
This is great. I have one more quick question before I let you go. Maybe
Please hit me.
Get a couple hours in before maybe the kids get up.
I doubt that.
I want to know if you have any advice for aspiring artists.
Yeah, I think mainly don't forget that you love it. I think this is one of those industries and one of those things that music's something we start because we love it. You know, you don't start music because, well, I mean, maybe some people do, I don't know, but predominantly you don't start music because you want to do it as a job. Like that's not kind of generally the first idea when you first start singing or playing guitar or playing drums or piano or whatever. So I think it's really important that you try and remember the passion because there's lots of times that, you know, the further you go, the more that the goal changes or whatever happens, that it's easy to forget the love and just kind of become a kind of a cog in the wheel or a part of the industry and kind of be a bit kind of, I suppose, it can be a really tough industry. But the thing is, you know, about this industry and being an artist and a musician is there's so many amazing sides to being able to do this and doing what we love. And I think it's just super important to always remember that love for it. And kind of, if you do start to lose that, work out how to find it again, because, you know, it is generally our first passion, you know, or one of our very early passions. So you don't want to do anything that's going to kill that, and you want to make sure that you can try and take that through as much as you possibly can.